Today our scripture reading comes from Romans 12:9 through 16. Let love be genuine, hate what is evil, hold fast to what is good, love one another with mutual affection, outdo one another in showing honor. Do not lag in zeal, be ardent in spirit, serve the Lord. Rejoice in hope, be patient in suffering, persevere in prayer, contribute to the needs of the saints, extend hospitality to strangers, bless those who persecute you. Bless and do not curse them. Rejoice with those who rejoice. Weep with those who weep. Live in harmony with one another. Do not be haughty, but associate with the lowly. Do not claim to be wiser than you are. This is the word of God for the people of God. Thanks be to God.
Thank you. So, this morning, I was asked to speak on radical hospitality and what that means. And it's the beginning of our stewardship campaign. Now, I grew up in the church. I've heard the word stewardship a lot, and it took me a long time to figure out what it was. I just knew I was supposed to take care of things and kind of what the definition really was. And I was excited that I got to talk about this in particular because stewardship, I love words. If you know me, you know I love words. I love the meaning of words. I love sayings, where they come from. And so I was like, I really wanted to dig down to what stewardship was. Now, stewardship actually comes from an old English word called steward or stigward, which means house guardian or housekeeper. Now, what we can learn from this is literally this person did not own the stuff. They're the person who took care of the stuff, right? None of it was theirs, but they took care of it in the manner that the person who owned the things wanted them to. They maintained, they procured things for the house in ways, and took care of the house in ways the master would want. And so, if we think about, well, we as Christians are called to live into that in following God, not just taking care of a household, but much more than that. Between James 1:17, which states, every good and perfect gift comes from above. It comes down from the Father of the heavenly lights, who does not change like shifting shadows, and mentions, basically of both the psalmist in Psalm 139, it says, you knew me before you knit me together in my mother's womb. And then God directly saying to Jeremiah and Isaiah, I knew you before I knit you together in your mother's womb. He essentially says the thing directly to them, taking all this into account, taking that everything comes from him, and he made us. Literally, we have been entrusted with everything. Life itself is what we are entrusted with. We are the housekeepers. We are the house guardians of literally our time, our talents, our abilities, our gifts, our possessions, literally everything we have, everything we understand, everything we comprehend, we are a steward. We are a guardian of, and are called to take care of those things in the manner that the master would call us to. It's kind of, I know, like it's kind of awe-inspiring when you think about it, because a lot of times when we have things, we think, these are mine. I get to do with this what I want to. I own it. My time is mine. But the Bible paints a much different story. So knowing this, knowing that literally everything we understand, everything we are, everything we comprehend is God's, given to us to take care of, how does that help us become better stewards? Right? So we really put the rubber to the road. The topic that we're talking about today, radical hospitality, was seen in a book was articulated in a book by a guy named Robert Schinese. And now, he said there were 5 practices, or 5 practices of fruitful congregations. Now, fruitful congregations are congregations that are doing the work of God. They basically are fulfilling the Great Commission. You see them growing, you see them loving people, you see them making more disciples, which is the Great Commission. Go out and tell all the world of me and spread my name. And so he defines those as fruitful congregations. So he says there's 5 traits, and the first trait is radical hospitality. Now, he defines radical hospitality as a congregation or a group of believers that demonstrates an active desire to invite, welcome, receive, and care for those who are strangers so they find a spiritual home and discover for themselves the unending richness of Christ. I didn't want to mess that up because that is worded really well. Right? The unending richness of Christ. Like, I want that. Now, amen, yeah. So, I need to say before we go any further, I'm not here to say that we're doing things wrong. That's not what this is about. This is, as Shinazi explains, this is how we can build on what we have. This is about our unique talents, our unique abilities. During the Sunday school hour, there were tons of things that came out, fruits that are coming out. There was how we fed the first responders, right? That was people using their time, using their talents, their gifts, and their abilities. There's the homebound ministry, people that show up every Sunday. They go to where the people are. They minister to the people. They take the things to the people where they are, right? There's Fall Festival, where we put on, we engage with the community and bring people in. There's Angel Tree, again, one of those times where we donate time and resources and abilities. There's tons of fruit here. There's tons of things going on. So what Shinazi is saying is we need to think outside of what we're already doing. Because we're people of routine, aren't we? Yeah, we are. Yeah, we're more predictable, probably, than we like to admit. When we show up to church, for people who are regular attenders, you have a general place you park, you have a place you come, you probably have your coffee visit planned out, and then you have certain people you talk to, certain areas sit in. Like, we're people of routine. And so what Shinazi is saying is this radical idea is just thinking outside what we're already doing, building on the things they already have that are awesome, and then adding to those things with the individual talent, time, and ability that we have. So that's what we're talking about today. And to get more into kind of getting back to this passage and what Paul is talking about, I'm going to break down 2 more words. One is radical, and the other is hospitality, because Paul directly uses the word hospitality in this text, and we're going to talk about what the Greek word is for that, which is kind of interesting. But radical actually comes from a late 14th century word called radicalis, which means to get to the root of, or the root of. So really, this idea of getting outside of our common thinking is really just the core of who we should be as Christians. Paul is saying, I'm just laying it out. And then hospitality, the Greek word that he uses is philoxenia, or philoxenia. Literally translates friend to the stranger. So we're supposed to go to the root, go to the heart, go to the center of being a Christian to be friends to strangers. Now, this friend to stranger, this word that he uses is very familiar to the Greeks. It's familiar to that society. It was held as one of the highest, basically, social conventions. If somebody showed up at your house, you were essentially to make them feel warm. You'd be kind to them. You're supposed to give them food. You're supposed to give them a place to stay. Basically, it was a very loving culture. It was a very open to travelers, open to just who comes in. You make them feel comfortable. That's what you did. So when he invokes this word for Christians, it kind of puts a little bit of a spin on it. But they're familiar with what this idea is. So they know he's talking about people coming into their church and into their midst. I like there's a translation of this, it's the NIV, that says, the verse 9 literally reads, "Don't just pretend to love others, really love them." I mean, pretty blatant, right? And what Paul's laying out here when he writes to the Romans is there is an authentic Christian response, an authentic way that you respond to people in Christ's love. Right? There are traits, just like with anything genuine, with anything that you know is of note and it is branded. You think of like the $100 bill, right? It has markings on it. It has safety strips. It has safety measures where like bank tellers are trained to look for those specific things. Here Paul is saying the same thing. When you come across these congregations, this is what it looks like. This is what Christ's love, this is what the love to the stranger through the love of Christ looks like. So the first trait that he says that all of these congregations share, all congregations share, when you go back to the heart of hospitality and love, is authenticity. Authenticity, right? I'm going to ask you a lot of questions and a lot of kind of like delving into your own experience, and that's okay. You don't have to answer out loud. But to do this, I think is necessary because we really need to think about the ways we have interacted with people, because hospitality is a very relational thing. It's about people. It's about dealing with people, how we've experienced people, how we've interacted with people. So this first trait of authenticity, I want to ask you about a time where you met someone who was fake. We've all met them. Or you felt they were fake. Or you felt maybe they didn't have your best interest at heart. Right? You kind of got that off the jump. And you're like, no. Just kind of got that uneasy feeling. Or did that person make you feel valued? Answer's pretty much no, right? You don't feel like you have value to that person. Do you feel like your ideas or your presence there mattered? No. Right? Because they're not going to listen to you. They're not really interested in who you are. They're not diving in to try to get to know you. They're not trying to uncover parts of or get to know you at all. So is that a person then, if you just met them, or a place or a business? If that was a business, would you want to go back to it? If that was a person, would you want to continue a relationship with them? No. I think that's what Paul is hitting on here. If our ultimate goal is to help people find their own relationship with God, because that's the ultimate goal of what we're doing, we pursue a relationship, and then it's to help others find that same relationship. Because we're excited about it. We want other people to be excited. And that's what we do. We share things we're excited about. We just naturally do it. Movies, games, YouTube videos. We share things we're excited about because we want other people to enjoy it. So that was trait number one. Trait number one is authenticity. Trait number two that he points out in verse 10, that, as he says, is take delight in honoring one another, which is encouragement. So trait number two of radical hospitality is encouragement. Now, I don't know if anyone has ever experienced this, and if you have, awesome, I'm super excited for you. Have you ever had someone just like go out of their way to tell you, hey, I noticed this thing you did, and that was really cool, and I just want to let you know that I really appreciated getting to watch you do that? Doesn't it feel good? Yeah. You're like, I wasn't even doing that for a reason. I was just using my talents, right? So, and that's what he's talking about here, is spurring one another on in encouragement. Being like, hey, you're doing that thing. That's awesome. And does that make you feel valued? I'm going to use this word a lot. Does that make you feel valued? When people encourage you and are like, hey, you have value. You have something to contribute to this group. I'm excited you're here. Encouragement is a powerful thing. Because how many of you just kind of get, like, and it's easy to get into that mode of just like feeling discouraged. Just like kind of can't see things a little bit, right? But when people are coming alongside you, like, you're doing it. Like, we're in this together. That's powerful. That's what he's saying here. He actually says something very similar and the promotion of encouragement to the church in Philippi in in chapter 2, verses 1 through 4. Is there any encouragement from belonging to Christ? Any comfort in his love? Any fellowship together in the Spirit? Are your hearts tender and compassionate? Then make me truly happy by agreeing wholeheartedly with each other, loving one another, working together with one mind and one purpose. Like, I want to be a part of that. That sounds inspiring. That sounds like something that is a group that you could really experience life-changing experience with. You could come alongside of and be part of. So, I think Paul again hits the nail on the head pretty squarely here. Encouragement is the second thing that you will find across hospitable congregations that truly have Christ's love at heart, and the people that are coming in, not just people there, but the people that are coming in, have their best interests at heart and looking out for them. So, trait number 3 is joy or passion. He devotes a couple of verses to this. Verse 11 through 13, where it says, again, never lacking in zeal, but keeping your spiritual fervor, serving the Lord, but be joyful in hope, patient in affliction, faithful in prayer, share with the Lord's people who are in need, practice hospitality. Again, this is the word that we talked about earlier that he's using, hospitality. Friends to strangers. Now, have you ever been around someone who kind of seemed like they didn't have hope? Yeah. I'll be honest, part of my testimony had a period in that. And man, it's a hard place to be. But here he's saying, when you know, like when you reach out to those people, when you see those people who have hopelessness, when they walk through those doors, like you have the joy, you know the answer, you know the thing they don't know. You can give them hope, because I am hope. But so often we get kind of caught up in what we're doing and kind of our life and the things that are going on, and we lose sight of maybe that kind of sense around us of things where people are struggling or need that. Again, that's what Paul is saying, is that joy, that persistence, that passion should be evident in our lives if we're pursuing Christ. It should just come out of us. People should look at us and be like, man, that's different. I want that. I don't know what that is. I want it. So, point number 4. So we've got authenticity, encouragement, joy, and passion. Point number 4 is empathy, or being in the moment. Verse 15 says, be happy with those who are happy, and weep with those who weep. I don't know if you've noticed, but attention is a limited quantity. I know we like to feel like we can multitask and we can take on tons of stuff and we can just do it all. But this is the example that the youth hear me say all the time. But have you ever tried to talk to somebody who's on the phone, like really into being on their phone? Did they respond to you? Probably not. Because attention is a limited quantity. We can only focus on so much at a time. And here, being empathetic, we're focused on us. So inwardly focused, our routine, kind of the things we get into, the things that we feel are going to make us happy or that kind of stuff, we're going to miss other people. We're going to miss being able to speak in their lives because we're not paying attention. And going back to that scenario in your head of the person who kind of snubbed you, did you feel like you had value? Did you feel like they cared about what you were saying? No. Because if they cared about you, they'd pay attention. Right? That's Christ's love. God pays attention to us every second of every day of our entire life and every single moment of everyone's lives. He's not away, he's not far, he's not distant. And here Paul is saying, if you have the love of Christ, if you are looking for those people, if you are using the gifts and talents and time I have given you as a good caretaker, you won't miss that stuff. Because we want that stuff, right? We want, when we're hurting, people to notice. Or when you're excited, you go to someone and you're like, oh, this thing happened to me, this is so amazing. And that person's like, yeah, that's cool. I've been there too. We should be excited for those people and God's blessings abound in them, man. That's radical hospitality. It's going a little bit further. Sometimes it may take you a little time. It may not be what you had planned to do that day. God set up a divine appointment that maybe is going to take a couple extra minutes. They took a lot of extra minutes. It'll be worth it. That's what Paul's saying. We need to be happy with those who are happy and weep with those who weep. And the last one is humility. It is verse 16. It says, don't be too proud to enjoy the company of ordinary people. And don't think you know it all. A lot of times we like our own ideas a whole lot. It's true. But have you ever felt looked down by someone who didn't listen, who thought they knew more than you, who maybe kind of looked down on you for some reason? Could be age, could be height, could be social standing, could be anything. Did you feel valued? Did you feel like you belonged there? No. Did it make you want to keep hanging out with that person? Probably not. So this value of empathy, this value of humility, which is value 5, we need to be those people. We need to be those people that are like, man, I just want to hang out with you. I just want to learn more about you. I just want to get to know you. And I personally have experienced that at this church. I just want to let you know, Andrew and I are so blessed to be part of this church, the way you have invested in our lives. I'll just take that time real quick to say that. The way you have loved on us and cared for us and supported the youth ministry, I just thank you. Really appreciate it. I know the youth, it means more to them than they'll say, most of them. It does mean a lot. So how do we get better How do we get better at doing these things? How do we get better at being authentic? How do we get better at being humble? How do we get better at encouraging? How do we get better at being passionate? And the answer is really simple. Have a relationship with God. Right? You can't give something you don't have. Like that joy, that passion, that humility, that want to just, you see somebody and you're like, you're hurting, I know the answer. That thing that wells up inside of you when you realize the grace that you've been given by God, you just want to share with everybody. And Matthew 22:37-40 says, love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your soul, all your mind. This is the first and greatest commandment. And the second is like it. Love your neighbor as yourself. Not love your neighbor as your neighbor loves you. That's different. That's reactionary. God's love is proactive. It seeks. It's vigilant. It's attentive. And that's radical hospitality because it just begins with the receiving of God's grace. And I don't know where you are in your walk with God, if you are questioning or if you have been running the race. But that's where it starts. And those of you who've been running the race, you know it. And that's awesome. And those of you who are just starting and wondering and kind of questioning, I highly encourage you to try. Just genuinely try. And if you don't know how to do that, find somebody in this room. Just be like, I want to know. I want to know how to take the next step. I just want to know. Find me. So, as we close, just kind of want us to think about some things. Like I said at the beginning, this is about getting to the heart, the love, the goal of radical hospitality, which is to get more people in the church and then show them God's love and then just blow the doors open and just keep multiplying and making more disciples. That's what it's about. So maybe some questions to think about as we go from here, as we meditate on what it means to be hospitable to those that we come in contact with, the people that enter our doors, the people that we meet in the community. What are some ways that we can find out who is mourning and mourn with them that we don't know about? Using our unique talents and abilities, the things that you specifically have been entrusted with by God. When was the last time we considered the sacrifice someone put into doing something for us and said thank you? Because doing something for somebody takes sacrifice. And we're real quick to write it off sometimes. It's acknowledging and it's thinking about people doing things for you, and it kind of removes you from yourself. When was the last time we went out of our way to ask someone's name we didn't know? When was the last time we walked someone to a class or event to help them find it rather than to just tell them where it is? I mean, people do that in businesses, and I love it. When they're just like, it's on aisle A7, I'm not going to find it. Probably not. But if they walk me there, much better way I can probably find it. And I want to come back because they really took care of me and they saw things from my perspective. When was the last time we encouraged someone by pointing out something they're good at or talented at, or they're using their abilities or time to do something? When was the last time you just pointed something like that out? Specific thing. Two more. When was the last time we tried looking at our church, building, signage, greeters, service, bulletin, everything a visit includes, through the eyes of someone that has never been here before? because those are the people coming. And as somebody who grew up in the church, I didn't think about that stuff for a long time. But as I started traveling around and going to new churches, anxiety kind of builds up in you when you go to a new place. You know? Try seeing things with new eyes and in ways from other people's perspective to reach them and to make their experiences as easy and as joyful as possible. Oh, and then what are some intentional things that would make a visitor feel like we thought about their visit and wanted to make it a great one? Because you notice things when you go places, right? You're like, oh, that's cool, they did that thing for me. Or, oh, that's neat. Or maybe you really noticed lawns or things like that, which the lawn looks awesome. Trustees are doing a great job. So, and taking care of those things. But just things like that we can think about, ways that we can be hospitable to the stranger, friendly to the stranger in God's love and his compassion.